So far in our journey through the fascinating and often unsettling grimoire of Ars Goetia, we've been introduced to a varied mix of demons who not only excel in sciences, languages, philosophy and divination, but also those who are willing to teach and aid mankind, should they dare to ask for it. Whilst each demon differs quite drastically in appearance, there is something formulaic about each encounter, where we are told the demon in question governs X amount of legions, or that he possesses a specific rank in hell that determines his standing amongst the other spirits. It isn't until Paimon, the ninth spirit of this classification, do we see that formula slightly change. Indeed, not only does Paimon have by far the longest entry of all the demons thus far, but he is also said to have once been an angel himself, who possessed legions that contained other angels who worked at his disposal, and to even be one of Lucifer's most devout. We are first told that Paimon is the ninth spirit in this order, a great king and very obedient unto Lucifer. He appeareth in the form of a man sitting upon a dromedary, with a crown most glorious upon his head. What's interesting is that for a grimoire centered around categorizing demons into a hierarchy, whilst also detailing how many legions each demon has influence over, this is the first time we see Lucifer's name brought up at all. Straight off the bat, it gives the impression that despite being the ninth spirit in Ars Goetia, Paimon has an influence that not even the likes of Baal, the first principal spirit, can claim to possess. By this idea, Paimon has friends in high places. Well, one specific friend, who though was cast out of heaven, is arguably the most powerful evil being in all of existence. It's no stretch to say that with this idea, Lucifer may have rewarded Paimon's loyalty with the rank of Great King, a rank that sounds far more impressive than anything we've seen thus far. You'll notice that the first principal spirit Baal was only a king, whilst the fifth spirit Marbus was merely a great president. Furthermore, as we later learn, Paimon's abilities and his influence by far dwarfs the aforementioned demons, making the demonic dukes, princes and marquises pale by comparison. In regards to Paimon's appearance, it's not unusual to see the demons take the form of men. Why they might do this is not really known, but some speculate that this could be because the demon's true form is simply too terrifying for man to comprehend. It's also not that unusual that Paimon chooses a dromedary as his mount, considering the likes of Ageres and Visago, who chose to ride crocodiles. Furthermore, with his most glorious crown, there is no illusion as to which demon holds all the power, at least from the ones we've encountered. Ars Goetia continues of Paimon, there goeth before him also an host of spirits, like men with trumpets and well-sounding cymbals, and all other sorts of musical instruments. He hath a great voice, and roareth at his first coming, and his speech is such that the magician cannot well understand unless he can compel him. Here we learn that Paimon does not come alone. If and when he is summoned, he is flanked by a retinue of musicians who appear to march ahead of him to signal his arrival. I suppose you might think of it as having your own personal band, who provides entrance music for literally everywhere you go. What kind of music is played is unfortunately unknown to us. I'd like to think of it as alternative metal from the mid-2000s, but considering the time period of writing and the specific use of trumpets and cymbals, I believe we're probably looking at something far more instrumental and dramatic. Interestingly, Paimon is described as having a great voice himself, not to be undermined by his musical companions. I suppose that in order to be heard over what is quite possibly a live orchestra, one would indeed need to possess a loud voice. However, because it is so loud, Ars Goetia leads us to believe that those who have summoned him might not actually be able to understand him. In any case, if the magician is able to perceive Paimon, there is a suggestion here that only the mighty can achieve this, then Paimon can share with the summoner quite the wealth of knowledge. We are told the spirit can teach all arts and sciences and other secret things. He can discover unto thee what the earth is, and what holdeth us up in the waters, and what mind is, and where it is, or any other thing that thou mayest desire to know. So, like with the previous demons, Paimon is no stranger to the arts and sciences. In fact, he can even teach secret things, possibly some kind of dark or taboo knowledge that is forbidden to humankind. We see examples of such knowledge being taught to pre-flood humanity in the Enochian legend, where fallen angels known as Watchers divulge unto them the secrets of heaven, supposed divine knowledge that was so powerful that God didn't want mortals knowing about it. If this is the sort of knowledge that Paimon possesses, then you can bet that for some, summoning him and building up the courage to face him and compel him is well worth the risk. There is something provocative about these secret things that Paimon can teach us, and it gives us the sense that if we were to summon him, and if we were successful in maintaining his audience, then our lives would be changed forever, with knowledge and wisdom that would reshape the very foundations of life as we know it. Furthermore, the text is pretty bold in specifying that Paimon can pretty much tell you anything you want to know. Literally anything. And for those desperate for answers, whether corporeal or otherwise, a conversation with Paimon might be too good of an opportunity to pass on. Of course, for the more religiously devout, this would be a big no-no. Summoning demons is explicitly off the table, and those who confer with demons, even the seemingly helpful ones, risk eternal damnation when their souls are judged. Of course, with most demons, there's always something else for which to sweeten the pot with, and with Paimon, well, it gets a little too dark for comfort. We are told, "He giveth dignity, and confirmeth the same. He bindeth or maketh any man subject unto the magician, if he so desires it. He giveth good familiars, and such as can teach all arts. He is to be observed towards the west." So yes, as can be seen, Paimon can pretty much turn anyone into a slave for you. There is no indication that the victim has any say in the matter, but rather, Paimon quite literally binds whoever the summoner has chosen and makes them subservient. Going by scripture, I can imagine that those who have an affinity with God, or who are more devout, are probably either impervious to such manipulation, or at the very least, are provided with some divine defense against Paimon's entrapment. But for the everyday person who is unsuspecting of demonic influence, well, they're pretty much screwed if the summoner happens to choose them to enslave. Paimon is also seen here to give good familiars. He gifts the summoner with not only a human slave of their choice, but can also present the summoner with a demonic servant too, likely from one of his own legions. Worse yet, we also learn that he can teach all arts. So if you wanted to learn this dastardly magic, you could probably get him to teach it to you, and thus eliminate the need to confer with him again. With this in mind, Paimon definitely comes across as one of the more devious and wicked of the demons we've encountered thus far, where he not only leads man toward forbidden knowledge, but also comes across as something akin to a demonic slave trader, who deals in not only the bodies of his own kind, but also the unconsenting man or woman. We are then disclosed of a more dichotomous characterization for Paimon, one that might label him as not necessarily purely demonic after all, but rather something that's half demonic and half angelic. This would make some sense if we go with the idea that all demons were once angels, and that it was those who joined Lucifer's rebellion and were cast out of heaven who ended up losing their angelicness and gained something far more horrid and detestable. In any case, before we speculate anymore, Ars Goetia does specifically tell us that Paimon is of the Order of Dominations, He hath under him 200 legions of spirits, and part of them are of the order of angels, and the other part of potentates. The order of dominations, or simply the dominions, are believed to be responsible for the governance of cosmic movements, including stars and planets, as well as the celestial bodies, for example, the angels that are beneath them. Typically, they are believed to maintain the orderliness of the cosmos according to God's will, and can be seen to exact this order when necessary. In some beliefs, dominion angels play a role in upholding divine justice. They are the judges of the beings beneath them, and can not only be seen to explain these judgments as instructed to them by God, but can deliver them too. So it would seem that Paimon belonged to an order of angels that were actually pretty benign, all things considered. It is peculiar that the author of Ars Goetia continues to associate Paimon with such an order, almost giving us the impression that he's still working for them, or that he's something of a double agent batting for both sides. Even more interesting is that Paimon has 200 legions of spirits under his control, by far the most we've seen in any of the demons thus far, and that some of these spirits are part of the Order of Angels too. This gives me the impression that the spirits under Paimon's control aren't just your typical run-of-the-mill demons, but rather those belonging to the celestial hierarchy, including the likes of the virtues, the powers, or the principalities. You might be reminded here of the 8th demon Barbatos, who like Paimon was also of the Order of the Angels, the virtues to be specific, despite now being a demon. What this shows us is that this dual nature of angel and demon is not exclusive to just Barbatos, but is exemplified in Paimon too, showing us that at least by the laws of this narrative, demons aren't entirely evil, but perhaps exist in a grey area between wicked and just. The final line of this section refers to the potentates, and that part of Paimon's 200 legions belong to them too. At first, these potentates aren't exactly obvious to identify, but it can be understood that these potentates are another angelic order, the powers. The powers are often seen to be warrior angels, sentries who form what is essentially the celestial army, or the army of heaven, basically God's anti-demonic task force. These beings, as you might imagine, defend against a more carnal evil. The powers, often coined as the authorities, which makes them also kind of sound like the heavenly version of the police, are also believed to be defenders of peace and order, who restrain the forces of evil, including demons and fallen angels, as well as casting them into detention areas, or prisons. So once more, whilst Paimon might have the largest set of legions of all the demons thus far, many of these legions appear to be borrowed from angels who, for whatever reason, moonlight to bolster his numbers. The greater question here would be that if this was the case, then why does God allow this all to transpire? Why would God allow for his angels, especially his angelic task force, to work alongside demons, least of all, to serve someone like Paimon? As we continue the entry, we learn that Paimon doesn't always emerge with his musical entourage, but can also be seen to be accompanied by two somewhat ambiguous kings. We are told, "Now if thou callest this spirit Paimon alone, thou must make him some offering. And there will attend him 2 kings called Label and Abalim, and also other spirits, who be of the Order of Potentates in his host, and 25 legions. And those spirits which be subject unto them are not always with them, unless the magician do compel them." The final section gives us the idea that the summoner might also choose to summon 2 kings known as Label and Abalim, 2 of Paimon's attendants. Why the summoner might want to do this is not clear. There is no apparent incentive to want to confer with these 2 kings, and to be honest, it seems like more of a mental effort, having to juggle not only Paimon and his musicians, but also dominions, powers, and God only knows what else. The truth is, Paimon's legions are so large, and seemingly full of all kinds of spirits that whoever did try and bring him forth would almost certainly have their work cut out for them. According to the Pseudomonarchia Daemonum by demonologist Johann Weyer, much of the account follows the same as Ars Goetia, though with some small additions that give us a little bit more insight into Paimon's countenance. Firstly, Weyer describes Paimon as being effeminate in his appearance, and it can be gathered that the demon, unlike the others thus far, takes some pride in his dress sense. Weyer goes on to supply some specific instructions that the summoner ought to adhere to, including facing northwest or north during the summoning, for this is where Paimon's house is believed to be situated. Furthermore, Weyer includes an additional idea that Paimon may have once belonged to the cherubim, the three-headed angelic beings seen by Ezekiel in the Bible. Meanwhile, according to the Infernal Dictionary by Colin de Plancy, Paimon isn't only given an effeminate countenance, but rather can appear with the face of a woman, lending to the idea that this is the first female variant we've come across, or that this is demonstrative of Paimon's ability to shapeshift. Much like Ars Goetia and Pseudomonarchia Daemonum, Paimon is specified as riding upon a dromedary, and commanding legions made up of the Angelic Order of Powers. In yet another text known as the Book of the Office Spirits, a grimoire believed to have inspired much of Weyer's work, as well as the Goetia itself, we are told that when Paimon was summoned, he actually refused to speak to the summoner and would only talk if the summoner was able to command him to. With that, the account also details that Paimon chose to speak in his native language, perhaps a sign of his unwillingness to converse with mortals, and would only speak in the summoner's tongue if he was compelled to do so. As always guys, if you've enjoyed today's episode, then don't forget to leave this video a like and don't forget to subscribe for more content just like this. Until next time.